To discuss it now, Antony Sammeroff, who's a therapist and a spokesperson for the Scottish Libertarian Party, and also Dr. Bharat, Pankhania, who's a senior clinical lecturer at the University of Exeter Medical School. Gentlemen, welcome to RT. Antony, first of all to you, is this just a natural extension of the usual anti-vaxxer spiel, or is there something different this time?
Well, it's a mixture of both. I think for this particular vaccine, there's a few reasons why people are sceptical. One is that the safety procedures have been very much truncated for this drug and compromised. They've skipped the animal tests, and the observation period for humans as subjects is very, very low. It's also a very new type of technology, this mRNA, which has never really been used before. So there's new factors. Also, these companies are not liable for damages. So those who are of an anti-vax persuasion can say, oh, there's something spooky going on here. You know, usually if you buy a product and it damages you, then you're able to sue the company for damages. And no drug is completely safe, but at least this forms some sort of counterbalance against companies skimping on safety procedures. And finally, Pfizer has a history of fraud and corruption already. I mean, they set the record for the largest healthcare fraud settlement in US history to the tune of $2.3 billion they were sued. So people are worried as to whether this vaccine has been rushed through and is actually going to be safe for them.
Dr. Pankhania, given that even over-the-counter medicines that we've all been taking for decades come with a list as long as your arm of possible side effects and things you should and shouldn't do if you've got existing conditions, why do you think skepticism's bubbling up so much over these vaccines?
May I first start by countering what my fellow panelist has just said, which is safety corners have been cut. They have not been cut. They have gone through independently verified protocols for testing the vaccines, first in the animal model, followed by small samples of human beings, followed by phase 3 large samples of human beings. So coming back to your question about safety measures and side effects, well, the issues are that these days people don't trust official media and official government lines, which is understandable because we've had discredited politicians who lie, and having lied, they get away with it. And therefore, there is a lot of discontent in the community about who is telling the truth. What we as experts, scientists, need to do is take the front stage and talk about how the vaccine works, how it produces immunity, what it does, what it doesn't do, and carry the people with us. I remember in my days when there was a lot of concern around the MMR vaccines, I did what you would call a lot of shoe leather epidemiology, where I talked to my patients. I explained to them the issues. I explained to them the pluses and the minuses of being immunized. And I managed to take most, not all my patients, but most with me, that this was a safe thing to do. It saves lives.
Antony, are the politicians making it worse?
Well, I mean, I'm confused at the fact that I'm told that the safety procedures haven't been cut. So it usually takes 10 to 15 years to develop and put through a vaccine. So that's so I guess the politicians are partly to blame, because if you look at the data that people are that's available online, it seems completely at odds with what the politicians are saying is necessary. I mean, you can't tell from the data from one region to another where's had a heavy lockdown, where's had a soft one, where's had a mask mandate, where's not. The data doesn't seem to back up what we're being told is good for us.
Dr. Pankhania, there's a difference between rushing things through and cutting corners, I guess. People are going to have a particularly rational concern about how rapidly these vaccines are coming through the system compared to normal.
Let me put that myth to bed once and for all, if I may, and thank you for the opportunity. The vaccine has not been rushed through, and let me explain why. When we normally start our research program, what you have to do is it is always on a slow burn, and the slow burn is, does mRNA vaccines work? and then you do your PhD and you do your further study, and then you try and get funding, and then you try and get ethical approval. And then finally, this is the hardest bit, most difficult bit, you have to find funding for phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, and in between the companies change their mind and interest in the product. In this case, this was a global effort, a global pandemic, and it became a bottomless pit of money. And therefore, the money was released, the resolve was there to do a lot of the tests as quickly as possible with the funding available. And therefore, it was able to do it in a short time. Not because we were cutting corners, but because all the normal barriers, the bureaucratic nonsense of funding, not being able to find the people to do the experiments on, etc., were all enabled. And that's why we've got the vaccine in record time.
Antony, do you see the skeptics being won over eventually, given that everyone's suffering from some sort of lockdown or COVID punishment, as it were, economically?
Right. Yeah, and I appreciate that clarification, because something that libertarian-minded people say is often that there's too much red tape around passing drugs. I'm just wondering, you know, can we really know? People are more worried about the long-term effects, like what if something happens, you know, 3, 6 months, years down the line? Have they had enough time to discover if people are at risk of those kinds of side effects?
Dr. Pankhania, you're nodding there.
Yes. Very happy to answer this. So what we do is not only once the vaccine is licensed, but after the licensing of any product, especially a new product, you survey and you follow up a large representative sample of the people. So you don't just immunize and forget. You immunize, put it in the GP records and National Health Service health records, and you follow this group up, and you follow it up assiduously over a long period of time to look out for unknown, unexpected, unusual signs and symptoms. And let me explain further the rapid response that we had in the United Kingdom when 2 people were immunized and they had what you would call a severe allergic reaction. The systems sprang into action immediately. We were able to act fast. We were able to change the data sheet. And this was not like this vaccine is dangerous. It was an unknown, unexpected, unusual event in otherwise very, how do you call it, allergenic people. But otherwise, the vaccines are safe, and we carry on with the safety because we are immunizing otherwise fit and well people. So we've got to maintain very high standards.
Antony, something I'd imagine that you'll be particularly concerned about would be the question of choice. Now, in order to accelerate inoculation, to get it out there into the communities, suggestions such as in the US of companies being allowed to say you must have an inoculation in order to be able to sign a contract, whatever. How does that rest with you, that there might end up with this 2-tier system whereby people who don't want to get vaccinated are kind of excluded?
That's the thing that I'm most afraid of. I mean, I'm all for those who are less sceptical about the vaccine taking it first, and let's see what happens. And some people are cautious, and I think they've got the right to be cautious because there is a history of big pharma, doohickery and tomfoolery. So I think that if we are getting to the stage where vaccines are mandated, that is a serious impingement on people's civil liberties. Most people will feel a lot better if they can see those who are keen to take the vaccine do that, and several months down the line, once their concerns are allayed, they can make the same decision.
Just quickly then from Dr. Pankhania to finish, because a lot of people, if they want to travel to foreign climates, they don't mind getting a jab for yellow fever or against malaria. They'll quite happily do that. Some countries demand a certificate. Will vaccinations have to be forced through, just quickly?
Well, I don't think that just because you have been vaccinated and you have a certificate implies that you are not infected or infectious. That thing we don't know, because we don't know how long the immunity lasts for. And second thing, we don't know, especially with the Pfizer, Moderna vaccines, that if you have the vaccine, do you also get mild illness and therefore could be potentially infectious but not symptomatic or not ill? Because that bit was not tested for. But in time, In time, we will know how well the vaccines are performing, and then we will be able to tell immunized, therefore protected, and protected for a long time, or not.
Yeah, we're all learning as a world day by day, hour by hour, it feels sometimes. Gentlemen, I really appreciate your time on RT tonight. Thank you.